Good morning, you guys. Freya slept all night long. I know I've told you that she's been having some struggles sleeping lately, so I'm very excited. And she's still asleep. She woke up, had a little bottle, and went right back to bed. So I thought this would be the perfect time to do our NICU stay part 2. If you don't know me, I'm Marcy. I'm the mom of 4 kids, the youngest of whom is Freya. You just saw her over there, and she has a rare syndrome called Cornelia de Lange syndrome that affects her growth and development. So the last time I talked about our NICU journey, I talked mostly just about what actually happened and not a lot about how I felt about what happened. So I figured this time I would speak a little bit more about how I felt about what happened. Which, you know, true Marcy fashion is a lot of conflicting emotions. Freya was born at 35 weeks. We knew she would come early because of how small she was. She had intrauterine growth restriction, basically just meaning while she was in the womb, she was very small. And so they wanted to take her early because of that. We were trying to get to 37 weeks, and I went into labor at 35 weeks. Now, the maternal fetal medicine doctors were basically preparing me for worst case scenario. They were telling me she might not live to be born, and if she did, she would probably have to be life flighted. They didn't really know what was going on. They had no information to say she would do poorly outside of the womb. They were just going on assumptions. So I knew they had nothing to go on other than her small size. I really felt like everything was going to be okay. I really felt like she was going to have minimal time in the NICU. I was going to take her home. We were going to feed her, and she would grow and do fine. I don't know if that was denial or grief or what it was, but I just always had this very calm feeling that things would be okay. So when Freya was born, I was simultaneously surprised at how well she was doing because I had been told she was not going to do well, while also a little sad that she had to stay in the NICU. I knew she would go to the NICU, but I was kind of hoping that they'd be like, she's fine, and then I take her home. So those conflicting emotions of like, I thought she was going to be okay, while also being so happy that what the doctors thought was going to happen was not what happened. And also being away from my 3 other kids. We lived an hour away from the hospital that had the NICU. And I stayed with Freya the whole time. Being away from my other 3 kids was torture. I felt pulled in 2 different directions. I felt like I needed to be there with Freya. I felt like if I was there and doing skin to skin and feeding her and helping her, that she would get better quicker. I felt like she needed her mom, but I also miss my other kids so much. Jessie was 2, Fiona was 5, and Liam was 7. So they all still were very little. And so that was very difficult for me to be away from them for so long. They would come down and visit, but it's just not the same as tucking my kids into bed and hearing about their days at school and things like that. So it was hard. It was hard being away from my babies. Freya was in the NICU for about 2 weeks. She was supposed to be in there a lot longer. The only reason she stayed in the NICU was that she couldn't eat by mouth. She needed a feeding tube. And we had one doctor that wanted her to stay until 42 weeks gestation. And then a second doctor came on and decided that Freya could go home with a feeding tube earlier. I took her home at almost 38 weeks gestation. So in the NICU, they kind of count what the baby would be if they were still inside you, if that makes sense. So she was about 2 weeks old when we took her home. Thankfully, we had a doctor that was on my side and knew that I could do all the feeding tubes at home. We also kind of suspected that she had CDLS, and so we knew this feeding journey was going to be a very long journey. I, at the time, worked on the postpartum floor and worked a lot in the NICU and worked a lot with NICU moms. And I had seen babies learn how to eat, and I felt like Freya was taking too long. I fully expected her to kind of get with the program and start eating, and she would go home eating all on her own. So again, conflicting emotions of, I was so happy that we were allowed to go home with a feeding tube, but I also was so disappointed that Freya wasn't eating by mouth by the time we went home. And again, I was so grateful to the doctor that let us go home early, but also was still just devastated that this was not looking like I thought it was going to look. I do have to say, now that I look back on our NICU time, I do feel so incredibly grateful that I could have those first 2 weeks with Freya and just focus on cuddling. In the NICU, they talk a lot about skin to skin, which is where you put your naked baby on your chest, and kind of the heat from you and your heartbeat kind of helps regulate their systems. And I was all about the skin to skin. I would go down every morning. I would do all her, they call them cares. I would take her temperature, change her diaper, get her feed going. First, we would always try to bottle feed, but that never ended up going well. So then I would pour what was left into her feeding tube and set the feed and just sit and snuggle and repeat every 3 hours. And I really did enjoy that one-on-one time alone with Freya. And I also loved when my kids were able to come and visit and just seeing them in complete awe of their baby sister. I was worried that all the extra tubes and wires would kind of scare them or put them off, but it didn't at all, and they always wanted a snuggle with their sister. So I look back now, still with mixed emotions about the NICU, but I do have very fond memories of me being there, and Chris was able to come down and snuggle and feed Freya, and the kids were able to come down, and I really enjoyed the one-on-one time. We were very fortunate in that there was nothing really scary going on with Freya in the NICU. We had a couple breathing issues, but other than that, it was really just kind of chill. She had what was called periodic breathing, so she would breathe and then stop breathing and then start breathing again, but it never was scary. She would stop breathing for like 5 seconds, so it never was really too scary. So we were very fortunate in our NICU journey and very blessed that Freya was so healthy. We're just very fortunate that Freya was so healthy. Very lucky. I don't think anything I did had anything to do with it. I don't think anything, like, it's all just luck. It's all just kind of how the roll of the dice end up, I feel. Yeah, I never want anyone else who has been through this NICU journey and did not have as good an outcome or had kind of a harder time feel like it was something that they did and that I did differently, because it's just not. It's just pure luck. So I hope you liked kind of my feelings on our NICU journey. Again, a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, and a lot of joy and happiness. And that's just been my experience with everything Freya. I have a lot of conflicting emotions, a lot of emotions in my body at the same time that are completely opposite. So I don't know why the NICU would be any different. I will try to get some video of Freya later when she wakes up, so you guys get a little peek at her. I don't know. We'll see. She's kind of just catching up on sleep after not sleeping for 2 weeks. We'll see how the day goes. But I hope you will come back next time and see what we're up to. These Crocs, another CDLS Mama sent us. Yeah, another CDLS Mama sent us. Just for Freya. Go have some chewing Crocs. Huh. Yeah, because we sure don't walk in them. Oh, bye-bye shoe. Bye-bye shoe. Hello, trash can. It's closed. Yeah, can't open it. It's closed. Oh, man. That's fine.